Hi, friends. Welcome to the Do Life podcast. I'm your host, Life Coach Layla, and today I want to ask you, have you ever felt so exhausted that rest didn't help? I mean, like a weekend off, a vacation, a deep sleep. Like you were doing all the right things, taking time off, slowing down, but that heaviness just won't lift. Chances are you're suffering from burnout, and more than likely, you're not alone. Burnout has become one of the most silent epidemics in America, if not even the world. It's a silent epidemic, and it's one of the most least talked about health crises of our time, whatever. In today's episode, we're going to break down burnout. We're going to talk about it from a psychological and physiological standpoint. We're going to talk about what it looks like, how to possibly prevent it, how to remedy it once it happens, and how to avoid it in the future. And I'll even maybe share some of my own personal struggles with burnout. So if you're feeling stretched thin, checked out, emotionally unavailable, or energetically just not like yourself, then this episode is for you. So let's get into it. So what is burnout really? Burnout is more than just being stressed out or tired or bored. And it's often confused with certain things because you get bored with something and you think you're just burnt out. And I want to say that you can just be bored with something and it doesn't have to have another name. Like being bored with something is just being bored with it. Being burnout is a lot more deep. It goes deeper than just surface level adjectives or feelings and emotions. It's a deeper psychological despair almost. It's a state of chronic physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged exposure to stress and overwhelm, especially if there's not the proper support or rest or time off to help balance it. And I know quoting the World Health Organization is triggering to some people, but according to them, it's a symptom of chronic stress that hasn't been successfully managed. They define it as workplace specific, but we now know that it can come up in any type of situation, relationship, parental, romantic, entrepreneurship, or anywhere that sustained emotional and physical exertion is required without any kind of adequate recovery. There are three main indicators of burnout. The first one is emotional exhaustion. And that goes deeper than just tired. This is when you're feeling physically exerted. You feel drained and depleted every day. I thought my burnout was just my seasonal depression kicking in, and then I realized it was different. So it was really hard for me to self-diagnose. I don't recommend most people self-diagnose anything, but it showed up as so many other symptoms that I was used to, but it was a different level. It was a deeper level. And it's somewhat hard to explain if you haven't had it and don't understand it, the difference between, just a depression tired or a tired or an exhausted tired and a burnout tired. And these are a lot of different tireds that are all very different and hard to explain the differences between. But it's hand in hand. Like the second is depersonalization or cynicism. You start to feel a level of detachment to your work, to your family, to your friends, to your children even. You're just checked out. That's probably the easiest way that I can explain it. And the third is like a reduced personal efficiency. Like you're still showing up, you're still doing the things, you're going through the motion, but there's no real effort, there's no real reward, there's no payout. You're just going through the motions emotionlessly. I know a lot of couples will do that. They get burnt out in the relationship. They're staying in the relationship for the kids or for the house or for the finances or whatever reason, but they're checked out of the relationship. They're done having the conversations to try to make things work. They're done having their needs go constantly unmet, and they just they're just existing and they're exhausted and they're tired on a deep emotional level. But because there's no way out, they don't ever get a break or any kind of freedom from that. So they're just in a perpetual state of burnout. And from a physiological standpoint, burnout causes your body to flood itself with overloads of cortisol and adrenaline and dysregulation. And over time, this deregulates your nervous system, which then disrupts sleep and digestion, which can then weaken your immune system. It's like your body's way of screaming that it can't keep up with the demands that you're putting on it. And I personally think it goes way deeper than that because it affects our identity. Someone who has an amazing work ethic, they show up, they go above and beyond, and they're just abused at the workplace. And I use that to its fullest definition because a lot of us have been abused in the workplace. It's not necessarily like a physical or emotional abuse, but hey, you do a good job, so I'm going to make you do everybody's job because the rest of the team can't keep up and you're the only one worth a shit that can actually do it. So we're going to just make you do everything instead of making everybody else stand up. It's like the better you are at a job, the more you're punished for being good at it. At least back when I worked in the Matrix, that was the standard. And the reason I don't work in the Matrix is because I got real burnt out real hard, real fast because I have a good work ethic and I do go above and beyond and I take pride in what I do and how I do it. And when that goes unnoticed or that's taken advantage of or that is abused, it leads to burnout. It affects you psychologically because here I am burnt out at this job that's ungrateful, that doesn't help me, and I'm acting my wage, and it makes me feel icky and gross inside because I know I'm so much better than that and I'm capable of so much more, but wasn't being rewarded or recognized for my efforts, so I didn't pursue them. So it made me feel like I was acting out of my element because I wasn't acting to my full potential. It was holding me back. And then that feeling of inadequacy seeped into everything. My parenting, I would come home exhausted and didn't feel like I was doing enough for the kids. And I spent all my time at work. And it was a whole snowball effect of negative things that happened. So burnout is much more than just like a physical exhaustion. It trickles into every aspect of our being. Like, I feel like it touches our identity, our energetic level, and even, on a metaphysical level, our spirit can get burnt out too. It's tired. It gets tired. I think coaches, creatives, entrepreneurs, and parents are especially susceptible. Single moms, single dads, single parents. Humans aren't meant to be single parents. We're meant to live in a community, in a tribe, and have multiple people help with multiple things. We're not meant to do it all by ourselves. And society has created a world in which we're expected to do that and act like it's okay when we're not okay with that. I want to have more open conversations about how none of that is okay. When I think back to being a single mom with just me and my daughter trying to be on our own and juggle work and parenting and childcare and having a social life or dating or any of those things is impossible. And I don't want to say impossible, those are bad words, but it was really, really hard to juggle all those things. And I have a really good support system. She has grandparents that love and care for her, that were able and capable of taking care of her and watching her throughout the day when I would work, an hour after she got off school or whatever the situation was. So I had that support system, but I have friends that don't have that support system. And I know how hard it is for them. And I do my best to support them when I can, but I can't be there. I still have a life to live. My kids are grown. I still have to tend to them sometimes and still deal with life. So I can't raise everybody's kids. But as a community, we need to be more accepting when those parents are burnt out. As an entrepreneur, there's no boss telling you that you can't work 20 out of 24 hours a day. And when you're excited about a project or something that you're bringing into the world, you're birthing these ideas, you want to nurture them and raise them and take care of them as quickly and as efficiently as you can. And with nobody telling you what to do, there's nobody telling you what not to do. And you get excited about an idea and you work all the hours to get this project done and make this thing happen. And next thing you know, you're so exhausted, you don't even want to do it anymore. So entrepreneurs are really susceptible to burnout because there's nobody to regulate their hours and the amount of effort that they're putting into their jobs. So they need to be a little bit more mindful. And again, in relationships, that there's so many things that when your needs go unmet for so long, no matter how many conversations you've had, if it's the same outcome, you're just inevitable until you're just tired on a deeper level. And again, as parents, we often overgive ourselves because we feel that our worth is tied to our output. We need to feel needed. We feel like we're competent. We feel accomplished when our children are taken care of. We feel accomplished when the house looks good. We feel accomplished when the dinner's been made. We don't feel accomplished when we're well rested and taking time for ourselves. And there have been times when I felt guilty for resting, and to process that was like, okay, I'm sitting down and doing nothing. Why does this feel weird? Why do I feel wrong for doing this? I feel like there's something else I should be doing and spending my time on. The hustle culture in America is disgusting, and I fell for it. I was like, yeah, I'm hustling every day. Every day I'm hustling. I'm not singing to you, Rick Ross, anyway. But yeah, like the hustle culture is pretty rough here in America, and it's disgusting. And I was a part of it, and I was proud to be a part of it, and I was proud at how much I could hustle and juggle. And while yeah, that's great that I was able to do those things, I was just surviving, and I was in survivor mode for so long that resting and taking care of me felt foreign. And that's the part that I'm not okay with. And that's the part that none of us should be okay with. And, the hustle culture makes it sound like rest is a weakness, even when that's the best medicine that we can take for ourselves. So I want to bring enlightenment to that, because we got to get rid of hustle culture. It's not cute. It's not fun. It's not necessary. It's wrong. It's wrong. When I think about being burnt out, and I've suffered through all of the different types of burnout. I was burnt out as a parent, but it wasn't when I was a single mom. It was actually I was a single mom with one biological daughter. Then I inherited two stepchildren who, I'd been raising them since damn near birth anyway. So they were always my babies. And then I had my nephews who I had also been raising since birth. So they were also my babies. I'm like everybody's mom. It's fine. All my kids have had stray friends. We call them strays, but they've had friends come live with us and stay with us. And I've taken care of them. I fed and watered them. I bathed them, housed them, took them on vacation. So I've always just had strays. But when I was financially, physically, mentally, emotionally responsible for five children at one time, all of us seemingly overnight, it was a lot. And I don't think it was just dealing with the kids. The kids weren't the problem. It was my nephews came with state regulations and rules. I had to be licensed as a foster family to raise my own nephews. And then I had to fight with their parents to get them back from the legal system. And I knew the abusive situation that they would be in if their parents won. And it was a lot of stress, and I think that is what caused the burnout, but it was because it was so much and it was constant. It was hard for me to get away from. I didn't have a break. I had my caseworker show up at my house at a random Saturday at 10 a.m. in her workout outfit because someone told her that the children's mom was living with me. I was like, this woman's not even allowed to know where I live. Like, I didn't want my sister to know where I lived because I didn't want her randomly showing up before she was incarcerated and I had her children. I had moved twice, and she was a crazy crackhead, so she doesn't need to know where I live. But yeah, my caseworker just showed up on a random Saturday and just kind of ruined my whole day. Like, me and the kids were having a great time. We were making little derby cars for Boy Scouts or whatever. And it was that. It was a constant. And then me and, my spouse were fighting, and it was just a lot of stress. And so we were very burnt out. And then of course we get burnt out in the relationship where together needs go unmet. You express over and over how much you want something done and it never gets done, or it's promised to get done and the actions are never taken place. You get tired of repeating yourself. You get tired of being lied to. You get tired of being led on, and you just burn out. And it's a sad place to be because, there's a part of you that still like wants to make it work and wants to put the effort in. But then there's another part of you that's like, I can only do so much and I've done everything I can. And at this point, I'm tired of doing things. And the same thing at a job, I go above and beyond and I'm ready for this promotion and I get passed up for a promotion because of some silly thing or because somebody else was related to somebody else and knew someone else, the workplace politics, and that you're more than capable and able and the better fit for that position, and you get looked over for some idiotic reason. And now all of a sudden you're being reprimanded because you're not performing up to standards. And it's like, I'm performing to the minimum standards. I'm performing at the level everybody else is performing. I'm just not going above and beyond anymore because you've proven to me that there's no reward or recognition for that. And I hate to feel that way. I hate to feel petty in a workplace situation and things like that. And this is just me rambling about my personal experiences with burnout, specifically in the workplace. But that can show up as a lot of other things. That could be just doing the same thing all day, every day for years and years on end, and just feeling like a Groundhog Day movie kind of situation where it's just deja vu. Every day is the same thing. And you're like, this is all life is? Surely there's more to it than that. And certainly there is. And, I feel like I'm currently burnt out in my house. Like I've lived in this house. I bought it 8 years ago. I've never lived in a house this long in my entire life. So I'm very burnt out. There's a lot of emotional things. There's a lot of relationship issues. My kids are grown. They've moved out. It's sad. It's quiet. It's empty. It's big. It's unnecessary. It's a lot of things. My partner loves it. I'm ready to go explore and travel and see the world and do different things and sitting in, it's a beautiful home with a lot of things. And I feel bad because I should be grateful that I have all of these things, but also I feel trapped. I feel trapped in a small town in a home. There's so much earth to explore. There's so many beautiful things I want to see and do that I don't want to spend all of my money to live in this house that keeps me here. I pay all the money to live in the house that won't let me spend the money to be in the other places, if that makes sense. So I feel very burnt out, like energetically. I don't want to clean. I don't want to do random maintenance. I don't care if the basement's flooding. I don't care if the gutters are falling apart. Like I'm so just energetically drained and over it. And I know that's my cue. It's time for me to go. I don't know where or what I'm going to do. I'm still toying with the idea of selling everything I own and moving into a van and traveling the world that way. I really, really like that idea and probably still might do that. But that also takes money that I don't have, and I can't sell the house that my partner wants to live in. Uh, and he doesn't have the money to just pay me out of it. So I'm just kind of stuck here and burnt out for the time being. So yeah, there's my life, things now. Anyway, that's my personal struggle and story with burnout that I'm working on. It's a work in progress. I don't pretend to get on this podcast and get on some high horse and tell you that I'm like so much better than everybody because I have it all figured out. I don't. I don't have it figured out, and I want to have this conversation to let you know that it's okay not to have it all figured out, and it's okay to feel these feelings and acknowledge them for what they are. And once you realize what you're going through is burnout, maybe you can be better at slowly working through the problems. Like it took me a long time to figure out that I was just burnt out of being here. I tried to blame all kinds of problems on all kinds of things before I figured that out. So knowing that burnout looks like a lot of different things might be helpful. So I'm having this conversation that I can help someone else who might be struggling or going through something similar, not because I think I know everything and I can help you solve all your problems. That is not why we're here. We're here to share our struggles and our stories and maybe bring light to something that somebody else might not have thought of. Like I've always really attributed burnout to jobs and works and never really thought of it in a relationship or parental aspect, or even like I could be burnt out of my home. Like who does that? Me. Uh, but you know what I'm saying? Like it was just something I never really would have thought about. So I wanted to share this information with you because this might just be something that you've never really thought about. And being able to identify it is part of the problem. Sometimes even just being able to identify it makes you feel a million times better. Like, oh, yeah, that's why I'm acting like that. Okay, now I know. Let's fix it. Let's move in a different direction. And that's really why I'm here today and to show you what this looks like. Because one of the hardest parts about burnout is it sneaks up on you. Like I said, I couldn't tell you the moment that it happened. I can tell you the moment that I realized what it was because that was an aha moment for me. But when it actually started to take place, I have no idea because it just kind of sneaks up on you. Like one day you're just like, why am I so miserable? And then when you do some deep inner work and reflecting and you think about it, you're like, oh, this is why I'm miserable. I hate this. I despise this. This is draining every fiber of my being to be in this place, in this environment, in this atmosphere with these people. That's when you know, and you're like, okay, I can acknowledge that for what it is. What do we do moving forward? Because a lot of times we don't pinpoint the exact moment because it's a gradual thing that sneaks up on you. It's let me push through this week and then I'll take a break. Well, let me just get through this project and then I'll rest. Well, once I have this launch or once I have this course, this episode or this blah 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 blah. Once we get through high school, once we get the kids in kindergarten, once we do this, then we'll work on the relationship. Then we'll fix this. Then we'll change. Then we'll move. It's always something. And that needle gets pushed further and further and further, and you never actually get the chance to rest. So the first signs of burnout that you have, you ignore and push through because hustle culture makes you think that that's the normal thing to do. And because you know you're capable of it, you will. And no good comes from that. So, what are some of the signs? A few signs that you can look for are constant fatigue, even after adequate rest. I have a whole episode on deep sleep and how to get optimal sleep. Caffeine is something that so many people use as a crutch because it gives them energy. But what it does is it causes you to be dependent on it and it doesn't really give you energy. It's more like a placebo effect. And it does give you like a small spike of energy, whatever. I'm not going to act like it doesn't, but it stays in your system for 48 hours and it depletes your body's ability to have a deep rest or it even messes with your REM sleep, which is your body's way of recovering. So it doesn't matter if you have a drink of caffeine and then you're up all night and can't sleep, or if you can drink a whole pot of coffee and take a nap on the couch. It doesn't matter how you fall asleep. It affects your sleep once you are asleep, if you get to sleep. 48 hours. So one cup of coffee can alter your sleeping patterns and habits 48 hours. So it's like when you have a lot of alcohol and you drink and you go to sleep and you sleep so hard because you're so drunk, you actually get terrible sleep when you're drunk. I have this like Whoop watch. It's insane how my body hates when I drink and my sleep levels are just trash when I drink. And the same thing happens. Like I've been monitoring my caffeine intake and my REM sleep and my deep sleep decreases for up to 48 hours sometimes just on one cup of coffee. And you get a physical dependency to it. You have headaches if you don't have it. It's a whole crazy thing. But, I talk about getting optimal sleep because it just trickles down into so many good things when you can have a good night's sleep. But say you don't have any coffee, you don't have any other stimulants, and you sleep adequately every night and you're still just energetically exhausted and drained and tired, could be a it could be a sign of burnout. If you're constantly irritable, short tempered, cross, everything gets on your nerves, everything pisses you off, you might be leading towards burnout. If you feel disconnected and detached to things you used to care about, you used to love doing arts and crafts, and now you could care less if you ever crochet anything ever again or glue something, or, you've lost interest in all of your hobbies and things that used to bring you joy. I mentioned good sleep, the opposite of sleep. If you start suffering from insomnia and you can't sleep, or you sleep for a little bit and then you wake back up, also could be signs of burnout. And then a lot of these symptoms that, I'm listing are also directly tied to sleep. If you don't get a lot of sleep, if you don't get a good sleep, you get brain fog and restlessness and difficult making decisions. And these are all possible symptoms of burnout. You get guilty when you rest. You feel like you shouldn't be able to relax. You start fantasizing about escaping. My my partner told me that right before he divorced his ex, he would daydream about her getting hit by a car in an accident, and almost in like a wishful way, not in like a malicious way, but just like, it'd be nice if I didn't have to deal with her ever again. Kind of, like I don't really want her to die, but I also don't want to spend the rest of my life with her kind of thing. And it was the acknowledgement that those weren't okay thoughts that he was like, yeah, I'm probably not gonna stay in this relationship because fantasizing about them dying, it's not like he wanted to kill her or murder her or anything like that. It was just like, I really wish she wasn't here and I didn't have to deal with it and it wasn't my fault kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't tell the internet that, but I mean, she's still here. So obviously he didn't, but it was just the thoughts that you're in a relationship with someone and you're fantasizing about them not being there, or you're fantasizing about other people, or you're job shopping while you're at work. You might already know that you're burnt out, but these are just some telltale signs. And also digestive issues. If you start getting headaches, cramps, dizziness, muscle aches, chronic fatigue, these are all different signs of burnout too. And like I said, psychologically, you might just keep telling yourself, well, I'll just get through this week. But you keep moving the bar. This week turns into next week, turns into next week, and it turns into never. Like I said, one of the biggest red flags is feeling guilty about resting. If I tell you to turn this podcast off right now and just sit in silence and then just sit there and your brain freaks out, like, what are we doing? There's something else that we need to be doing. That's a red flag. That was my red flag, was I couldn't just rest without thinking about what I should be doing or what I'm doing next. If I was resting and planning or prioritizing or making a list, then I was still being productive. Like I couldn't just sit and just be. And that was a red flag for me, was to just be, was like, I can't. And it took me a long time to get over that. And I want you to know that if you feel like any of these things, to take this as information and not judgment. Don't beat yourself up over it. Don't be like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't see the signs, or I know I'm in burnout. I can't do anything about it. It's okay. This is just information, no judgment. Your brain and your body are giving you important feedback and you'll figure it out. There's almost always a way. The earlier you notice it, the easier it is to shift it. If you can see the burnout is happening, you can see you're putting things off, you're putting off your rest. The second you acknowledge it, the easier it is to start working on it. And when you want to get into healing burnout, it's more than just like taking a day off. If you take a vacation and dread the idea of going back to work, and I know nobody wants to go back to work after vacation. They want a vacation from their vacation. But you can tell when there's a deeper, more psychological despair that a day off or a vacation just doesn't fix. Healing is more about rewiring your nervous system. It's rewiring your relationship with rest, with your self-worth. Recovery isn't just about quitting everything and moving into a cabin in the woods. Although that does sound nice, I'm not opposed to that. If you got some property, I already said I don't want to be here. Anyway, yeah. So it's not about just running away to the woods with your bestie or solo. It's about acknowledging where you're not giving yourself enough rest, or where you're not allowed to have enough rest, or where you're not allowing yourself enough rest. However you want to word that to make it make sense for you. It's about consistent, doable shifts in how you support your mind, body, and spirit. All three of those need to be in alignment. So let's talk about, how do we rework our mind? How do we rework the mind to heal ourselves from burnout if this is something that we're suffering from? One would be boundaries. I have a whole episode on setting healthy boundaries and enforcing them as well. But knowing what your limitations are and setting the boundaries accordingly. No is not a bad word. Saying no creates a safe space. Saying no creates a space for rest and rewiring. And it's essential to help you avoid future burnout or recover from current burnout. Boundaries, first and foremost. Second would be reducing your cognitive load. Are there tasks and things that you can give to other people? Are there ways that you can say no? Offloading decisions and creating routines frees up a lot of mental bandwidth. So instead of burdening yourself with more, can you empower someone else to take on more? Can you tell your boss that you can't fully commit to any more projects because you don't want to put out subpar work in the projects you've already committed to, and offer, the nice new girl a chance to show that she can do it? Because a lot of times your boss is just like, "Oh, you're good at this. Here, do this," and doesn't realize that your workload is already over consuming and so burdening that you can't possibly take anything on. So you saying no is an all around good situation because you're not disappointing him. You don't even know what his expectations are. He might just be habitually asking you to do things because they're used to just asking you to do things and you saying yes. You saying no can empower somebody else to show that they can do it too. So then you can share the workload and then you're not as stressed out and then it makes them look good. And then it's a good situation. So can you empower someone else? A lot of times we get in our head and we think, "Oh my God, if I say no, I'm letting them down. They're going to think less of me." And that couldn't be further from the truth, because you burdening yourself and thinking that you need to do all these things is, if they knew what you felt like, most of the time they would feel bad. I have so many people tell me that they just agree to do something because, they want to help out or they want to be nice. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want you to feel burdened to have to do something. If I asked you to do something, you can say no. It's okay to say no. Like, I would rather you say no to something you don't want to do than say yes to something you don't want to do and do it reluctantly or half ass. Just say no. It's okay. Again, if I asked you to do something and you half-ass did it, I could have just asked somebody else who would have been excited to do it and done better in the first place, but now you wasted all of our time. So when you're in your head about, "I have to say yes because I'm going to let them down if I don't," most of the time you're wrong. That's the wrong lie that you're telling yourself. You don't need to think from somebody else's perspective because you're in your perspective. You don't know where they're coming from, and what you think they think usually isn't true. So unless you're asking specifically, or 100%, which is highly unlikely, tell yourself a better lie and say no if you need to say no. I know that goes hand in hand with boundaries, but off-putting some of your mental overload, creating routines. When you have routines and structures, you wake up, you go potty, you drink some water, you brush your teeth, you don't think about doing those things. You can actually think about other things. You can do morning affirmations. You can do a quick meditation. You can plan your day. You can give yourself a pep talk. So you can do other things while you're doing your habits, because those are just things that you do. You don't even think about doing them. So the more habits you can create, the less you're thinking about things. So, like, I know a lot of people, a couple really successful men will wear the same suit and tie every day because it reduces the cognitive load. They don't have to think about what to wear in the morning. They already know what they're wearing. They can save that brain space for other more important, challenging tasks and questions. So the more you can systemize, the more you can create a habit out of, the less you're thinking about doing those things. So the more routines and structures you have, the less thought you're putting into those. If you know on Sunday you're going to meal prep every day for the week, then you don't have to think about where you're going to eat, how much money you're going to spend, what kind of carbs are you going to have. You're not thinking about those things. It's already just there and it's done for you. So the more things that you can systemize, the less burden on your brain you're giving, and the more able you'll be to think through things and process and digest and slow down. So set healthy boundaries, remove unnecessary cognitive overload, and then a digital detox. Social media is overloaded with emotional stress. You can watch 5 minutes of TikTok and go through every single emotion on the board. And that is so stressful to your brain and your body, and your emotions and your nervous system is dysregulated for a multitude of reasons, but that doesn't help. When you think about taking a digital detox, is what are you consuming? Pay attention to what you're consuming and what you're putting into your body and your brain. We spend so much time thinking about what we put into our body. We count our calories, our macros, our, our ketos, we're doing all of these things, but we're not paying attention to what we put into our brains. I'm very mindful of the social media I consume. I'm on social media. I find something funny or happy and I post it. I try not to scroll because too many people post emotionally triggering things to garner a response. And I'm not interested in that. I don't want to go to social media to go through all of the emotions. I want social media to be fun and entertaining. So I post jokes or I post uplifting quotes. I post information about, my life and what I've done, mostly the highlight reels. Like most people just post highlight reels. They're not posting all their struggles and things, and that's fine. And I don't mean to just attack social media. I mean, you can come home from work every day and watch the news. No good comes from that. They post an hour of one sad story after another, 10 minutes of weather, and one happy story, maybe, depending on where you live. But why are we consuming that? Why is that what we want to bombard our brain with? Why can't we watch something happy and uplifting? Why can't we see something nice and good in the world? There's just as much good news as there is bad news, but people don't want good news. It's not entertaining. It's not as emotionally charged. It doesn't have the same reaction. And so that's why all of your big media they post things that are meant to enrage you and make you feel sad or scared because that's what keeps you watching. So if we take that away from them, if we start turning towards happy, uplifting stories or people who are helpful and doing good things, then we're in control of what we consume, and maybe the rest of the world will catch on and they'll quit just displaying scare tactics and fear mongering, and we can all live a more happy, harmonious, peaceful life. And I'm not saying stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend everything's okay and there's no bad. No, of course you need to acknowledge certain things, but do we need to fill and consume every day, every space of our brain with these things? No. I haven't watched the news in a long time, and I just have regular conversations with people that are like, oh yeah, this is a thing that's happening. And then I'll research that thing. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a thing that sucks. And I'm glad I know about it now. Thanks. And then that's it. I don't need to watch the news every day and get every waking, breaking second of what's happening. No, it's never that serious. The world isn't ending. I've been through 9 apocalypses that I can recall in my lifetime, and we're still here until it's like for real aliens are exploding things. I'm not going to be glued to the TV and the news and need that constant redirection of information, and I don't think you do either. So, digital detox, take control of what you're consuming mentally as much as you do what you consume physically. And you'd be amazed at how just removing yourself from the negative information just empowers you and makes you feel different. I know so many people they watch the news and they're just so sad about the world. And I'm like, stop it. Stop watching the news. Like, go take a walk in the park. Go outside. Get off your TV, but just do something else. When you get rid of that, occupies so much space in your brain. And well, this presidency and this and the world's changing and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. You don't know that any of that is happening. You don't know that it is or it isn't. And all you're doing is stressing yourself out of the what ifs and you're giving yourself anxiety. So stop that. Just go be in nature. So that's in a nutshell. That's how we take care of our mind, how we take care of our body from burnout. So we've talked about the nervous system regulation. How do we regulate our nervous system? Well, there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. There's somatic breathing, any kind of deep breathing exercises, cold plunges, taking a walk in nature. There's really just this amazing thing about being in nature. It stimulates the vagus nerve and it shifts your body out of fight or flight into rest and digest. And yeah, I remember back in the day, they used to make fun of the tree hugging hippies. And I think everybody should go like hug a tree. And it's not because, you want to, oh, I love you, tree. You're so great. I mean, you can do that if you want to. That's awesome. Please do that. But also just like grounding yourself to the nature does so much on a subconscious level that you can't even imagine. So the second thing that I would suggest doing for your body would be sleep. We talked about sleep. The whole episode I have about optimizing your sleep, prioritizing deep, restful sleep, not just in time, but in quality. Prioritizing sleep and moderate exercise like yoga or walking lowers cortisol and improves mood and regulation. We talked briefly about nutrition, being mindful of what you put in your body. I had a dream a few years ago that was like, if you can't kill it or grow it, don't eat it. And I woke up like, well, that like eliminates everything because my diet was fast food and gas station food. I didn't have time to grocery shop. I grocery shopped once a week and I meal prepped for me and the kid. And that was the ascent of food that I had. And then when I ran out, it was, gas station breakfast and lunch and whatever else I could spend money on that wasn't really food. If it comes in a package and has a barcode, I don't think it's real food, at least not in America. But not just necessarily the food that we intake, but you can also look into your supplementation. I'm not going to go into the whole list of things that you can do, but there's like ashwagandha. It helps lower your cortisol. Rhodiola it's a good supplement to replace caffeine. It stimulates, but it boosts energy and focus without overstimulating, and it doesn't create that, sleep deprivation like caffeine does. And then there's holy basil. It supports immunity and emotional resilience. These are just a few of the supplements that you can take. There's a whole earth full of supplements and things that you can take. So I highly suggest that you research, what are some things that you need, and if there's a holistic or medicinal herb or approach to take before you just, go to the nearest pharmacy and pop some pills. Do some research and see what options are out there for you. So yeah, taking care of yourself nutritionally, not just in your diet, but also different supplementation as well. So your body, we've got your nervous system regulation, your sleep, your nutrition. And so now we've got your spirit. How do we heal our spirits? And I'm not going to get super woo-woo. And before we move on, I want to say that the supplements, I usually don't mention supplementation because too many people like to abuse them. And I'm not saying that in like a crackhead junkie kind of way. I'm just saying most people think, oh, I'm going to take this magic pill and it's going to make up for years of abuse of my body or neglect and lifestyle changes. So if you're taking any kind of supplementation, it needs to be in addition to doing the changes necessary that are required for real, sustainable, noticeable changes in your life. So there's no magic pill. So if you're taking a pill, it's a supplement because it's in supplementation to other things that you're doing. And that's not just other supplements either. That's actual lifestyle changes. So I'll get off my soapbox now. I just wanted to implement that before we go into spirit. And no, I'm not going to get super woo-woo about it. There is always a little pinch of metaphysical in most of my episodes. If you haven't figured that out by now, you are aware now. But as a life coach, my favorite question is, what is your why? And I say that's my favorite question. Every episode I have a new favorite question, so don't believe me. But when you have a real motivation for something, it helps build resilience when you're working towards something. Again, as an entrepreneur, you're working towards a project. You're so excited to launch this new course that you're creating that you stay up every night and you work on it for days straight. When your why is bigger than you and deeper than you, it's harder to get burnt out. And when the burnout seeps in and you acknowledge it's okay to take a break, you have that motivation to get back on it and not just drop it and let go of it completely. So ultimately, knowing what is your why, what is motivating you, what is keeping you doing the thing that you're doing, and if you're burnt out doing what it is, and when you figure out what it is that's actually got you burnt out, is there something else that you can do? So start making tiny little small adaptable changes to move in the right direction, in another direction if necessary. I'm also a trained facilitator in the 6-phase meditation system, so I'm always going to suggest meditation for a lot of different things. But again, the definition of meditation is to observe your thoughts. And when I tried to sit and just be and could not just be because I felt like I needed to be doing something, I realized that I needed to meditate more. The one thing I resist most is the one thing I'm like, oh, I probably need to do that more. I can't just sit and be. I need to do that. Right now, I tried Tai Chi and I hate it because it's slow, methodical movements of being in tune with your body. And I hate it. So I'm like, oh, cool. Now I have to do that because that's something that I need to learn to be more disciplined in. So taking time to be still and be mindful, as hard as that is, especially when you're in burnout and being still and doing nothing feels so foreign and almost bad, that means you need to do that. Actually, that's exactly what that means, is that you should do that, which is nothing. Another thing you can do is reflection. Do some journaling. A lot of times I talk about our brains just being a big ball of scribbles. And when you write or you talk, you're pulling the lines of scribbles out and you make more space for less scribbles. It's less dark. It's less dense. And there's more room for more thoughts. So when you're journaling, you're getting those thoughts out of your brain. I make lists all the time because I feel like if my brain I just have all these ideas and things, these to-do lists bouncing around in my head. So I write them down and I feel so much more relieved having them on paper because now I don't feel burdened with having to remember them all. It's just a weird thing that I do. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but having things out of my brain and written down seems to like release me of the burden of having them in my brain. There's always therapy, talking to someone that's not your bestie, that's not your hype man, talking to someone who's just an unbiased trained professional that can help you determine, what kind of thoughts you're having, if there are healthy coping mechanisms and ways to deal with some of the things you're dealing with. So, talking to a licensed therapist about some of the mental issues that you're having, and again, getting diagnosis. Is this burnout? Is this depression? Is this psychosis? Like, what is happening right now? Having information is half the battle. And then, of course, there's that deep inner working, like, what is your soul craving right now? If you feel like there's just more, what is that more? What does that look like? I did an episode on finding your purpose. I've done a couple speeches on finding your purpose. So if that's something that you feel like you might benefit from, then I highly suggest you look into that. I'll post links to these episodes in the show notes. Finding purpose and connection are definitely ways that you can reconnect with yourself and get out of burnout. And these don't have to be big, long, drawn out, daunting tasks. They can be something as small as like, take a breath with me right now. Breathe in deeply through your nose and then out your mouth with a sigh. So just that's a physiological sigh. That sigh helps to regulate your nervous system. It lets your body know that it's okay to relax. You think of you're walking in the woods and you see a rattlesnake in front of you. You immediately gasp. You go, and then your heart rate pumps fast and your breathing becomes shallow. Because your body is slowing down all of its functions to put you in fight or flight mode so you can escape and you can survive. Your body's meant to keep you safe. The project that we have due next week that we just remembered we haven't studied for or started on is not going to kill us, and we don't need to have the same response. Even though our body puts us in the same response, we don't need that. So we need to learn how to tell our body it's okay. We can calm back down. And by taking a long, deep breath in and that audible sigh out, you're telling your body and your brain that it's okay. If you can smile while you do it, even better, because that's tricking your body into being like, oh, we're smiling, we're happy, it's okay. We really are okay. So these are just little psychological things that you can do to calm yourself and re-regulate your nervous system. So if you're burned out at work and your boss is coming towards you, and the second you see or hear their footsteps, you immediately start to feel your heart pumping and you're getting flustered and frustrated and angry, and they haven't even walked in the room, take a deep breath. Simple as that. Now, again, this isn't going to fix everything and it isn't going to work all the time, but it's a big step in the right direction. And it's a little baby step that you can take anytime. So something as simple as breathing is something that you can incorporate into your everyday life that will help make small changes to jumpstart you in the right direction, especially because this one breath is a pattern interrupt, a reset, a reminder that healing is available in every moment. You see this in anger management or AA meetings or all kinds of different things where it's stop and count to 3, take 3 big deep breaths before you respond or before you react. And it's just a pattern interrupt. It's rewiring your nervous system. It's training your brain's circuitry to do something different. And those pattern interrupts create so much change that you're not necessarily even aware that you're doing. Just as easy as it is to create a habit, it's just as easy to uncreate a habit by doing pattern interruptions and things like that. Okay, so you've identified the burnout, you've taken the steps to heal from the burnout. How do we sustain this? How do we keep from getting burnt out again? That's a great question. So once you've started recovering, the goal becomes sustainability. How do you work, live, love, eat, sleep, play without feeling burnt out again? A few tools that you can use are setting time blocks and goals for productivity and rest. I know for the longest time, all of my to-do lists were go, 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 and then halfway through every day, I would notice that I'm falling short. And I'm like, why am I an hour behind every day? Well, I wasn't scheduling myself time to eat or go to the bathroom or refill my water or to rest. I wasn't scheduling myself time to rest. And I was setting myself up for failure because I was just expecting me to go and accomplish all these things without having the proper rest or breaks in between ideas or events. And then I was falling short every day. So when you're making your schedules and you're planning your days and your lists and whatever it is that you're doing, make sure you prioritize your list. Make sure you prioritize yourself. Your rest is non-negotiable. It needs to be on every list. I have rest sessions in my calendar to remind me, hey, you know what? At noon today, we're doing nothing. Okay. I know there's other things that you could be doing and want to be doing. You're doing nothing at noon, and I make myself do nothing because it's good for you in so many more ways than I have time to explain in this episode. But just trust me and hear me out on this. Prioritize your rest, schedule it when you're making your schedule. And then how about doing a check-in? Some people like to check in every night before they go to bed. How do I feel? What did I do? Did I accomplish everything? What could I have done differently? What do I want to do differently tomorrow? If that's too frequently, I totally get it. Maybe weekly, maybe Sundays. So Sundays, I like to sit down and plan my week and what my goals are and what my expectations are for me. And maybe you can do like a Sunday reflection, like how was my week last week? How do I feel overall? What do I want to change? What works? What doesn't work? So giving yourself that time to reflect and just see, okay, where am I right now? Am I okay? How many times do we ask our friends that, they got a sad face, they're showing weird emotions, they're not acting right. We have no problem asking our friends and family all the time, are you okay? Do you want to talk? When was the last time you sat down with yourself and was like, am I okay? Do I need to talk to someone? Think about it. Take care of you. Schedule time for you. Take care of you. And that also includes micro breaks every day. My watch is set to yell at me, and well, it actually makes fun of me if I don't get up every hour and move. It's like, hey, fatty, wake up. It's time to get out of the chair. No, it doesn't actually say that. But it's like, oh, it's time to get moving. Good job. You stood up. And I'm like, it's so rude. But especially if I'm driving on a long road trip and I'm like, I'm in the car for 8 hours, bud, leave me alone. But it's set to remind me to move at least 5 minutes every hour because our bodies are not meant to be sedentary and it's not good for us. So just getting up and walking for 5 minutes, doing a walk around wherever, walking to the bathroom, walking to get a drink, walking to go get a breath of fresh air is just something, just a pattern interruption, a system, just reset, reboot. And that 5 minute break does amazing things for your brain. When you take a 5 minute break from checking these emails, don't take that 5 minutes and do something else similar. Do something completely different, completely out of the norm, especially if you can incorporate some sort of physical movement into it. Get up and stretch. Do 5 minutes of yoga or jumping jacks or just stretches or like I said, just a little lap around wherever you are. I can be in the basement. I'll walk up the stairs and down the stairs and all the way around and come back through just to move, just to not be sitting for 5 minutes. And that does a world of wonders for your regulation, your brain, your nervous system, all the things. So movement. And then I know we talked about saying no earlier. No is not a bad word. Don't be afraid to say no and don't feel like you need to over explain why you say no. I don't need to know why you say no. That's not my business. If I ask you a yes or no question and you say yes or no, leave it at yes or no. If you're asked why, then you can explain why, but be short and sweet and to the point. I don't need to the whole, oh, I'm working on my boundaries and I got really burnt out and you're really not appreciative of anything that I do and I don't want to do it anymore and I don't want you to burn me out and I just want to stop it. No, just say no. No, just like that. Can you do this? No. Okay, thanks. I'll go ask Shelly. Okay, cool. It's that simple. You don't have to explain. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to feel bad. You can just say no. Just do it. So I feel like that's important to mention again because we might say no one time and then forget to say it again, ever again. So sustainability is continuing to uphold your boundaries, enforce your boundaries. Don't forget that no is not a bad word. No is actually a good word because you saying no is probably going to empower somebody else to say yes and overall works out for the better. So I'm not gonna keep beating that. I'm good. We're good with that. We got it. Okay. You can say no. You know how to do that. All right. Good. Perfect. Awesome. We're done here. You can have a great day. No, I'm kidding. I still want to talk a little bit about more about preventing burnout still, because preventing burnout doesn't mean you're never going to be stressed. It just means creating rhythms to cope with and deal with stress in a manner that provides adequate rest and mental rehabilitation for yourself. You don't want stress to be your baseline. And so many of us just stay stressed that fight or flight is constant and rest is not. I had a friend of mine staying here. She suffers from psychosomatic stress induced seizures and has a lot of seizures and has short term memory loss and a lot of brain damage because of these seizures. And I tried to get her to meditate with me because she's just so high strung and so stressed out. And I hated to see her like that. So I put her in a chair and I walked her through a guided meditation. And I was so happy I could see her physically relax. And the second her body was in a full state of relaxation, she jumped up and startled, like you'd have thought like a hyena was coming after her. And she was just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening? And I was like, you were relaxed. And it was so foreign, like she doesn't sleep right. So her brain doesn't have the short-term memory loss is because her inability to have proper sleep, it doesn't repair and heal itself. It's a whole snowball effect of things. And it was just to see her body's reaction to the need to stay in fight or flight. Like it relaxed for 5 seconds and didn't know what to do with that. It was crazy. I remember it that haunts me often because I wish I knew how to help her relax. And I see a lot of people like that. I have friends that they don't sleep well. They're constantly stressed out. They're borderline driving themselves crazy. And that's because they don't know how to relax. So you're never gonna be free of stress, but learning how to cope with stress and deal with stress in healthy manners is so key and important. And that's why I suggest therapy, because therapy can help you come up with better, healthier coping mechanisms for your individual situation. Yeah, everybody needs therapy. 100%. I don't care if you had the most amazing childhood ever. You need therapy. Check your ego. I'm kidding, kind of. But I want you to give yourself a life that's sustainable. We don't have to follow in line with the hustle culture. You can have success that doesn't come at the cost of your mental well-being. Rest is sacred. Rest is a necessity. It's not a reward. I had a conversation with a friend earlier where we might be partnering on a project together, and he had a lot of reservations about partnering on a project because the last time he partnered on a similar project, he drove himself crazy to the point of like hyperventilating, having a whole full on nervous breakdown because he was just so involved and engulfed in everything he was doing. And he was so stressed about this entire event that he couldn't function. So he had a lot of reservations about doing that. And I said, well, let's just do something on a smaller scale so we're not stressed. And if it gets bigger, we can incorporate more people. But I don't want you to feel like that. I don't want to feel like that. Nobody should feel like that. And I think that was very reassuring. So definitely okay to be successful without being burnt out, without being mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted and drained. Those two things don't need to coincide. And I want to get rid of that misconception that you have to work yourself to the bone to make a dime or be successful, because that's not real. That's not true. And everybody that says it is liars. I'm going to get some feedback from that, but I mean it. Like, yeah, there's hard work. It's 80/20. 80% of the thoughts and ideas and the rewards come from 20% of the effort. So that 20% of effort might be harder depending on what you're doing. I'm not going to say it's always easy, but it's not required to be as difficult as we seem to convince ourselves that it is. How about that? How about I say it like that? Now everybody's not liars. Okay, don't come at me. Anyway, burnout isn't a personal failure. It's a biological and psychological and physiological response to sustained overload. Being burnt out doesn't mean you're broken, doesn't mean you failed. It just means that you've been too strong for too long without enough emotional support or regulation. So take care of your mind, body, and spirit. You are more than what you produce. You are worthy of rest. You are allowed to pause. You are enough, even in stillness, even in rest. You can still do all the things. I would love to support you further in this. I'm going to be doing monthly Mermaid Monday meditations again starting in May. So I will share links and all the fun things. Follow my socials and sign up for the newsletter if you want to participate. I'll be doing it live. If you're in the St. Louis Metro East area, you can join me at the Yoga Wellness Sanctuary or the Purple Tree Wellness Sanctuary in Belleville. Or, like I said, follow my socials and sign up for the online link. I'll be doing it live here on YouTube as well. So, or I guess if you're listening to the podcast, you can listen to, I'll have links for that too. So we'll do all the things, but I would love to support you further if you'd like to regulate your nervous system and do a guided meditation. I do follow a little bit of astrology. So May is going to be grounded around the new moon in Taurus, or is it the full moon in Taurus? I don't remember offhand. Don't come at me right now. And we're going to be talking about grounding and abundance. And I would love for you to join me. Again, I hope you found value in this. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things, leave a comment, write a review. All these things help me keep the channel going and bring more episodes to more people. I really do hope you found value and I hope this was helpful. I just want you to know that you're not alone in your struggles. I think everybody goes through some level of burnout at some point, whether we acknowledge it or realize it. And you're not alone, and we're here for you. If you want to do one-on-one coaching with me, I also will leave links for that as well. I I truly do love you and appreciate you, and thank you for being here. So let's go do life on fire, right? That's the opposite of burnt out. If you're burnt out, you're done burning. So if we're burning, is that good or bad? You know what? It doesn't matter. Whatever. Go do life. I love you guys.